Oak Ridge Elementary. Monday afternoon, just after school dot, the wind howled through the empty schoolyard. Rain had just stopped, and puddles shimmered across the pavement under the pale orange light of a fading sun. 10-year-old Tyler stood near the front gate, wrestling with a juice box that just wouldn't open. As he tugged the straw wrapper with his teeth, a gust of wind swept past, blowing papers across the sidewalk and flapping the oversized rain poncho of a woman dragging a garbage cart. That's when he heard a soft rustle near his feet. He looked down. A crumpled $20 bill, damp and slightly muddy, had just landed against the toe of his worn-out sneaker. Tyler froze, then quickly picked it up, brushing off the dirt. His eyes scanned the nearly empty schoolyard. Most kids had already gone home, but a lone figure was still out in the rain, a thin, older woman in a frayed poncho. Slowly pushing a squeaky trash cart toward the back of the building. It was Miss Harlan, the school janitor. She wasn't someone kids talked too much. She moved like a ghost during the day, sweeping floors, wiping windows, always alone. Nobody even said hi unless it was by accident, but Tyler didn't hesitate. He took off running across the wet pavement. Miss Harlan. You! Drop something. She stopped, startled. The garbage cart let out a loud creak as she turned around, blinking against the wind. Her face, streaked with rain and years of wear, looked confused until she saw what Tyler was holding. Is that mine? I think so, Tyler said, holding it out. She stared for a second before carefully reaching out with both hands as if afraid the money might disappear. Her voice trembled. Oh my. I must have dropped it getting off the bus. Thank you, sweetheart. That was for dinner tonight. Tyler blinked. Dinner? Yeah, she gave a small, embarrassed smile. It was my last 20. Till payday. If I'd lost it, I guess I'd just go without. Those simple words hit him harder than he expected. Tyler had never thought about a $20 bill as anything more than pizza money or a trip to the gas station. But for her, it was everything. Miss Harlan bowed her head and thanked him again before turning back to her cart. The back of her poncho clung tightly to her bony frame. Her old sneakers squished through puddles as she disappeared around the corner of the building. That night, at dinner, Tyler sat unusually quiet. He stared at the mashed potatoes, the roast, chicken, the warm roll on his plate. Everything was hot. Everything smelled amazing. His mom finally noticed the silence. Everything okay, honey? Did something happen at school? Tyler hesitated. No, I'm fine. But he wasn't. He couldn't stop thinking about that crumpled bill and how it could have meant the difference between eating or not. The next day, Tyler arrived at school early. When the final bell rang that afternoon, he didn't rush home like the other kids. He hung back, pretending to tie his shoe. Then he lingered in the hallway until he heard the familiar sound of wheels. Squeaking outside, he walked toward the courtyard and spotted Miss Harlan sweeping around the flagpole. She looked tired. Her back curved as she bent down to pick up a discarded juice pouch. Miss Harlan? She looked up, startled. Oh, hi there. Shouldn't you be heading home? My mom's working late. I figured I'd hang around a bit. Maybe help out? She blinked, then smiled just barely. Well, I guess I could use some help. Can you grab that broom over there? Just watch out near the mulch, there's some broken glass. Tyler grabbed the broom and started sweeping beside her. Neither of them talked much, but the silence was comfortable. When they finished, she handed him a rag to wipe down the benches. From that afternoon on, helping her became routine. Every day after class, while his friends bolted out of the school like racehorses, Tyler stayed behind for 10 or 15 minutes. Sometimes he picked up trash. Other times he just walked with her across campus, pushing the cart as they talked about small things. How cold it was getting. How kids kept leaving snack wrappers in the library. One day, he brought an extra granola bar in his backpack. He handed it to her without a word. She didn't say thank you, just smiled and took a bite. Chocolate chip, she mumbled. My favorite. No one noticed them. No one asked. In the quiet space between the end of class and the start of evening, a quiet friendship bloomed between an invisible woman and a boy who chose to see her. Friday afternoon, behind the school building, Tyler stepped carefully around the back of the building, 2 peanut butter sandwiches wrapped in foil tucked into his backpack. The sky hung low, gray and still. He had expected to find Miss Harlan sweeping like always, maybe rinsing out her mop bucket or wiping down the benches. But she wasn't. She sat slouched on the concrete steps outside the old maintenance shed, huddled in her poncho, her cart parked. Nearby and forgotten, in her hands, sealed in a plastic zip bag, was a photograph faded, dog-eared at the corners, worn from time and touch. Tyler slowed his steps. She didn't see him at first. Her head was bowed, lips moving, whispering words he couldn't hear. Her shoulders trembled not from cold, but from something deeper, more fragile. He hesitated, then quietly sat down next to her for a few moments. Neither of them said anything. The wind rustled the dry leaves behind them. Somewhere down the field, the sound of kids yelling at football practice echoed faintly. But in this quiet pocket of the school, it felt like a different world. After a long moment, Miss Harlan finally spoke without looking at him. He was about your age. In this picture. Tyler turned his eyes to the photo. It showed a young boy, maybe 8 or 9, with light hair and a wide, goofy smile. He was holding a stuffed tiger in one hand, standing in what looked like a small kitchen. There was a smudge in the corner of the photo, as if someone had wiped away a tear once and stained it for good. Your son? Tyler asked gently. She nodded. His name was Jonah. He would have been 20 this year. Her voice cracked slightly. She didn't apologize for it. She just kept talking quietly, like someone who hadn't been listened to in a very long time. It was just the 2 of us for a long time. I worked nights cleaning offices, and he'd wait up for me sometimes, reading books on the couch. Always begged me to bring him leftover vending machine snacks. A thin smile passed across her face, but it didn't stay. One winter, there was a fire in our building, some faulty heater. The apartment filled with smoke so fast, I was out getting groceries. Just 15 minutes, that's all. Tyler's stomach twisted. He looked away, not because he wanted to, but because the pain in her voice felt like too much to look at head on. They told me he didn't suffer, she whispered. But how do they know? The question floated in the air like smoke, heavy and suffocating. Tyler reached into his backpack and quietly unwrapped one of the sandwiches. He held it out to her. It's peanut butter, he said softly. I brought 2, thought maybe you'd want one. She stared at it for a second, her eyes wet, but said nothing. Then, slowly, she took it. They sat there, eating in silence. 2 mismatched lives that somehow ... made sense in that moment. Tyler didn't ask more questions. He didn't try to fix anything. He just stayed, because sometimes kindness isn't loud. It's not a grand gesture or the right words. Sometimes it's sitting beside someone who hurts and not leaving. That evening, when Tyler got home, his mom noticed the dried mud on his shoes. The way his backpack smelled faintly like Lysol and cleaning solution. You didn't hang around school again, did you? A little. Tyler, what's going on? He paused, unsure how to explain it. Then finally said, there's someone there who doesn't have anyone. So I just figured maybe I could be someone. His mom didn't answer right away. She just looked at him, really looked at him like maybe she was seeing something new. You're a good kid, she finally said. Tyler shrugged. She's the good one. I'm just ... showing up. Friday afternoon, behind the school building, Tyler stepped carefully around the back of the building. 2 peanut butter sandwiches wrapped in foil tucked into his backpack. The sky hung low, gray and still. He had expected to find Miss Harlan sweeping like always, maybe rinsing out her mop bucket or wiping down the benches. But she wasn't. She sat slouched on the concrete steps outside the old maintenance shed, huddled in her poncho, her cart parked. Nearby and forgotten. In her hands, sealed in a plastic zip bag, was a photograph faded, dog-eared at the corners. Worn from time and touch, Tyler slowed his steps. She didn't see him at first. Her head was bowed, lips moving, whispering words he couldn't hear. Her shoulders trembled not from cold, but from something deeper, more fragile. He hesitated, then quietly sat down next to her for a few moments. Neither of them said anything. The wind rustled the dry leaves behind them. Somewhere down the field, the sound of kids yelling at football practice echoed faintly. But in this quiet pocket of the school, it felt like a different world. After a long moment, Miss Harlan finally spoke without looking at him. He was about your age. In this picture. Tyler turned his eyes to the photo. It showed a young boy, maybe 8 or 9, with light hair and a wide, goofy smile. He was holding a stuffed tiger in one hand, standing in what looked like a small kitchen. There was a smudge in the corner of the photo, as if someone had wiped away a tear once and stained it for good. Your son? Tyler asked gently. She nodded. His name was Jonah. He would have been 20 this year. Her voice cracked slightly. She didn't apologize for it. She just kept talking, quietly, like someone who hadn't been listened to in a very long time. It was just the two of us for a long time. I worked nights cleaning offices, and he'd wait up for me sometimes, reading books on the couch. Always begged me to bring him leftover vending machine snacks. A thin smile passed across her face, but it didn't stay. One winter, there was a fire in our building, some faulty heater. The apartment filled with smoke so fast. I was out getting groceries. Just 15 minutes, that's all. Tyler's stomach twisted. He looked away, not because he wanted to, but because the pain in her voice felt like too much to look at head-on. They told me he didn't suffer, she whispered. But how do they know? The question floated in the air like smoke, heavy and suffocating. Tyler reached into his backpack and quietly unwrapped one of the sandwiches. He held it out to her. It's peanut butter, he said softly. I brought 2, thought maybe you'd want one. She stared at it for a second, her eyes wet, but said nothing. Then, slowly, she took it. They sat there, eating in silence. 2 mismatched lives that somehow ... made sense in that moment. Tyler didn't ask more questions. He didn't try to fix anything. He just stayed. Because sometimes kindness isn't loud. It's not a grand gesture or the right words. Sometimes it's sitting beside someone who hurts and not leaving. That evening, when Tyler got home, his mom noticed the dried mud on his shoes, the way his backpack smelled faintly like Lysol and cleaning solution. You didn't hang around school again, did you? A little. Tyler, what's going on? He paused, unsure how to explain it, then finally said, There's someone there who doesn't have anyone. So I just figured maybe I could be someone. His mom didn't answer right away. She just looked at him, really looked at him, like maybe she was seeing something new. You're a good kid, she finally said. Tyler shrugged. She's the good one. I'm just ... showing up. Monday morning, Miss Carter's 5th grade classroom. The classroom buzzed with low chatter and the soft scrape of chairs. It was the beginning of the week, and most kids were still half awake, sipping juice boxes or passing notes when Miss Carter walked in, holding a stack of papers. Okay, everyone, time to put your notebooks away. I've got your personal essays right here, and some of you really surprised me this time. There were groans and giggles. A few kids straightened up, curious. The assignment, Miss Carter continued, was to write about someone who inspires you. And I'd like to read one that honestly brought me to tears. The room grew still. Tyler felt his stomach twist. He hadn't expected his to be read aloud. This one, she said, holding up a single page, was written by Tyler Blake. A few heads turned. Tyler stared at his desk, cheeks burning. Miss Carter began to read. The person who inspires me isn't famous. She doesn't wear a cape. She doesn't even wear nice clothes because most of hers are old and sometimes torn. She works at my school, but I bet most of the kids here don't even know her name. Her name is Miss Harlan. She's the janitor who picks up our trash and cleans up after us when we're gone. Every afternoon when I stay behind to help her, she doesn't say much, but she always thanks me like I've done something special. But she's the one who does the special stuff. She comes to school early and stays late, even when it rains. Even when she's tired. Last week, I found out that she lost her son. He was a little older than me. She showed me his picture. She still talks to it sometimes. She misses him every day. Miss Harlan makes me want to be a better person. Not because she asked me to, just because kindness like that is quiet and strong and it matters. When Miss Carter finished reading, the room was silent, not the awkward kind of silence, but the heavy kind, the kind that settles on people when something important just happened, and they're not sure how to react. A girl near the front slowly raised her hand. Wait, the janitor? Miss Harlan, Miss Carter said gently. Yes. A boy in the back frowned. She's always here when I leave. Like ... always. I never even thought about it. Another girl nodded. One time I spilled my lunch and she cleaned it up so fast I didn't even get in trouble. I didn't even say, thank you. Tyler finally looked up. Not because he wanted the attention, but because something in the room had shifted. They were seeing her. Really seeing her. That afternoon, Tyler went out back again, sandwich in hand like always. Miss Harlan was sweeping up near the fence line, her cart parked under the eaves of the storage shed. You're a little early, she said with a warm smile. I kind of wanted to see you before the other kids came out. Oh, they heard about you today. She blinked, cautious. What do you mean? Tyler scratched the back of his neck. My teacher read the essay I wrote. About you. Miss Harlan froze, broom in hand. You wrote about me. I hope. That's okay. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes shimmered. No one's written about me since Jonah made me a Mother's Day card and crayon. And even that got orange juice spilled on it. They both laughed softly. A few moments later, the bell rang. Kids poured out from classrooms, the sound of voices and sneakers filling the air. But something different happened this time. One by one, as students walked past the back lot where she stood, they looked at her and smiled. Some waved. One boy called out, "Thanks for all you do, Miss Harlan." She turned slowly, a little overwhelmed. Tyler, what did you do? I just told the truth, he said. That you matter. That night, Miss Harlan sat alone in her small apartment. She opened a drawer and pulled out the crayon-streaked Mother's Day card from years ago. The corner was still stained with orange juice next to it. She placed a new piece of paper, a printed copy of Tyler's Ice, laminated by Miss Carter and delivered by hand, for the first time in a very long time. She didn't feel invisible. Thursday afternoon, gray clouds, strong wind, a storm on the horizon. The day started out like any other. Tyler helped Miss Harlan sweep the sidewalk behind the gym, cracked jokes about how the leaves always seemed to fall faster the moment they finished raking them. She laughed, really laughed, not just the polite kind like something had loosened in her chest over the past few days. Everything felt normal, almost light. But at 3:27 p.m., as Tyler zipped up his backpack and waved goodbye from the hallway, a loud crack shattered the air. Then came the shouting. Fire! There's smoke. It's coming from the old supply unit. Tyler's heart dropped. The old supply shed, the one in the far corner of the back lot, where Miss Harlan always stored her cart, where she often took a break to sit and rest alone. When no one else was around, he didn't think. He just ran. Flames licked the sky in angry streaks, smoke hurling into thick, black spirals. Staff yelled for students to stay clear. A siren sounded faintly in the distance, but Tyler sprinted past the teacher's line, across the field toward the smoke. Tyler, stop! Someone shouted. He didn't stop. His legs burned as he raced past the chain-link fence, coughing as he got closer. The shed was fully ablaze now, fire roaring from the roof, windows shattered. But through the heat, through the smoke, he saw it. The cart, Miss Harlan's cleaning cart. Parked just outside the door. Dot still hear Dot. So was she. Miss Harlan. He shouted, voice cracking. Where are you? There was no answer at first, just the roar of the flames. Then a weak voice. Tyler? It came from inside Dot without hesitating. He yanked his sweatshirt up over his mouth and ran into the smoke. Inside, heat blasted his skin like an open oven. His eyes burned, but he could just make out her silhouette slumped near the back wall. Coughing hard, one leg pinned under a falling beam. Tyler, no, you can't be here. I'm not leaving you. He ran to her side, tried to lift the beam, but it barely budged. She was barely conscious, her hand gripping something tightly. Tyler realized it was a plastic bag with Jonah's photo inside. Please, she whispered. Leave me. Not happening, he said, jaw clenched. He looked around. There a broken mop handle nearby. He shoved it under the beam like a lever, threw his weight on it. Slowly, inch by inch, it lifted. With all the strength he had. He pulled her free. They stumbled out together, smoke trailing behind them, the photo still clenched in her fist. The moment they cleared the door, a teacher grabbed Tyler and pulled him back. Firefighters rushed past. The shed crackled and collapsed inward with a thunderous roar. But they were out. Alive. Later that night. In the hospital hallway, Tyler sat beside Miss Harlan's bed. She had a mild burn on her arm and smoke inhalation, but she was smiling. You ran into a burning building, she whispered. I couldn't let you go, he said. Not after you just started coming back. Her eyes welled up. No one's ever come back for me before. He looked down. You never should have had to wait that long. She took his hand, and for the first time since Jonah, someone held. Hers not because she was broken, but because she was worth holding on to. A week later, Oak Ridge Elementary Gymnasium, 10:02 a.m. The bleachers were packed. Students squirmed in their seats. Parents lined the back wall. Teachers whispered. Across rows of folding chairs. No one really knew what the special assembly was about. They only knew it wasn't on the calendar, and that the principal wore a suit. At the front of the gym. A simple podium stood next to two empty chairs. Tyler tugged at his button-up shirt, feeling weirdly out of place. He'd never been up there before, never stood in front of the whole school. And certainly not for something like this. Next to him, Miss Harlan sat quietly, dressed in her neatest outfit, still simple, still old but clean and ironed. Her hands rested nervously in her lap, the familiar photo of Jonah tucked inside her coat pocket. Principal Martinez stepped up to the microphone. Good morning, students and faculty. Today we're taking a moment to honor two members of our school community who reminded us all what courage, compassion, and quiet heroism really look like. The gym fell still. Sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms. Sometimes they don't shout or stand in the spotlight. Sometimes they sweep our hallways when we aren't looking. Sometimes they bring a sandwich instead of a speech. And sometimes they run into a burning building just to make sure no one is left behind. A ripple went through the students. Tyler's classmates turned to look at him. Not with the smirks or teasing that often came with attention, but with something gentler. Respect. Awe. Even, Tyler Blake didn't hesitate to risk his safety for another person. And Miss Edith Harlan has spent years doing small, quiet acts of service that have kept this school running and our students cared for, whether they noticed or not. And now we notice. He paused. Today we honor them both. A staff member brought out two plaques. The first was for Tyler, for bravery beyond his years and a heart that saw what others overlooked. The second was for Miss Harlan, for a lifetime of unseen kindness that finally deserves to be seen. Principal Martinez turned toward the crowd. Please join me in standing, yes, standing to honor Miss Edith Harlan. At first, just one teacher stood. Then another. Then students. Row by row, the gym rose to their feet. Miss Harlan blinked rapidly. She hadn't cried in front of a crowd in over a decade. But her hand found Tyler's. He stood beside her. He didn't let go, later as the gym emptied and kids filed back to class. Miss Harlan stayed behind. She looked down at her plaque, then at Tyler, then up at the now empty bleachers. He would have loved this, she whispered. Jonah, Tyler smiled. He would have been proud. She looked at him gently. He would have liked you. Tyler nodded, his voice low. I like him too. 2 months later, the last day of school, the sun poured down in golden streaks through the windows of Oak Ridge Elementary. Kids rushed through the halls with yearbooks, swinging backpacks, laughing at inside jokes that would be forgotten by August. Tyler walked a little slower. His mom was waiting outside with the car packed. Boxes. A new apartment, a new city. He was moving away. He'd known this day was coming for months, but now that it was here, it felt heavier than he expected. He took one last slow lap through the halls, past the classroom where Miss Carter had read his essay aloud, past the gym where a whole school had once stood up for a woman most of them had never spoken to, and finally to the back hallway where the library entrance used to be plain white, but not anymore. There, freshly painted, was a soft green nameplate with gold lettering. The Jonah Harlan Reading Room. Beneath it, a small bronze plaque read, "In memory of Jonah Harlan, for the joy he gave and the mother who never stopped giving." Tyler's throat tightened. He had asked the principal if he could do it. Used his own allowance. Miss Carter helped with the email to the district. The PTA helped fund the paint and the plaque. He never told Miss Harlan. He wanted her to see it today when the bell rang one last time, dot and right on cue. He heard her voice, "You leaving without saying goodbye." He turned. There she was, Miss Harlan, standing at the other end of the hall, hands on her hips, her cleaning gloves tucked in one back pocket and a familiar softness in her eyes. He walked over. "Did you see it?" he asked, nodding toward the wall. She looked. She covered her mouth with one hand. Tears pooled in her eyes. Oh my Lord. She reached out to touch the plaque with trembling fingers. "You did this?" Tyler nodded. "He deserves to be remembered. And so do you." She shook her head, laughing through the tears. "You, little troublemaker, you came into my life out of nowhere. And you just kept showing up." He smiled. "You kept showing up first." The final bell rang. Kids cheered in the distance. Doors flung open. Summer had officially begun. Tyler looked up at her. "You gonna be okay?" She straightened her shoulders, wiped her face, and smiled proud and steady. "I will now." They hugged tight and quiet and long. Then Tyler walked down the hall, away from the school toward a new beginning, and Miss Harlan stood alone for a moment, in the empty hallway beside her son's name. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. She felt seen. She felt remembered. She felt whole, but not really. Because stories like this don't end. They echo in hallways, in kindness, in names remembered on walls. And in boys who became better men because of someone the world forgot to notice.